What is up, everyone? I'm here with Solarious, and today we're going to be talking about the importance of a proper mindset and why setting goals are going to benefit you greatly. Um, we've both been at it for like 10 years, and for the longest time, we just made a bunch of cool sounds and stuff, and we never had a direction, and it shows because we never did anything. We learned a lot, but we didn't put it all together. So, what changed was recently we got the proper mindset. We know we need to develop songs and finish them and not keep going to the next one. Um, and setting goals, basically deadlines and all that stuff. You know, you need to plan your days when you're going to be learning, your days you're going to be working, and just really just got to get into it. Um, what do you guys say about that?
Dang, I might have to put on headphones.
Got to get some headphones.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like your audio is chopping out a lot, and I don't know if it's because my microphone is picking it up real good.
Uh oh. But just to pick up where we left off while he gets those, you gotta have a proper mindset. If you aren't gonna go into making music with the mindset you're actually gonna make something, you need to work on the mindset before you even open up the DAW to start working on your song. And the easiest way I do it is just start thinking about it. Be like, I'm gonna make a song today. What kind of songs? What's up, Anthony? It's always good seeing you in the chat. Um, but yeah, like what type of song am I gonna make? I'm gonna make it, and then you also gotta trust yourself too. That's the biggest thing, cause you might be guessing, is this good enough for that? But like when you listen to other artists, you know what's good, right? You could pick the good music from the bad music to yourself. So when you're producing music, don't you trust yourself to make good judgments, to make good music? Don't you know what good music is? So definitely trust yourself in the process. But Nick, are we solved your situation? Are we good on that side?
I'm getting a lot of like glitching on my audio. I don't know if it's because the the video chat's going and the live stream. It might just be too laggy.
Well, you sound good on this end, so if you just want to go ahead and talk about your experience with mindset and goals.
Oh yeah. So like a lot recently, I was having trouble just putting together music that I liked, and I had like a lot of sound development and things that I was collecting and trying to like arrange some sort of music. Like I don't know, I was just messing around a lot and experimenting, and I really wanted to start to create some sort of direction with it. So I had been talking with like my roommates and Jacob off and on about like different things that I was struggling with, and I don't know, like just coming up with like a better mindset was really helpful during the whole process because I was able to kind of go in and see my weaknesses and kind of plot a plan to correct some of the things that I was doing wrong in my production. Not that anything's wrong, but like just things that I was like overlooking and like, I don't know, just a lot of random stuff. I was just kind of being lazy and didn't want to address right up front. I just started taking a better approach to it with my mindset and making a game plan with it. And once we got to that point, like started to actually take all of those sounds that I had and like go through them and remove things I didn't like and put together folders that were really easy to see with like Ableton and just kind of build my sound more. And then I really started to see a huge progression with like me actually sitting down and being creative and like playing with the music. Because when you don't have all your tools arranged, like you kind of just try to make things on the go, and that's kind of a cool mindset to have when you're just like in the creative, like kind of like productive mindset where you want to like make things. That's one of the things that we'd probably cover for this course is like separating your sessions. Like you'll have the productive sessions where you're like developing sounds or like creating melodies or whatever, recording with vocalists or jamming on your guitar, whatever you're really doing in your production. You have those things, and then you have your other sessions, which are more of like your compositional sessions, which are more of like the final creative session where you sit down and you really work on taking all those elements and piecing together your puzzles and stuff. And like you kind of gotta have that mindset when you're in those sessions that you have like instruments to grab or whatever you're looking for in the production. Like when I'm making the tracks that I've been doing recently, I'm always looking for like some sort of weird synth that's kind of detuned, and like I need my effects that I usually build on it and all that stuff. So I have like a couple that I built in my rack, and I just go ahead when I'm in the creative session, when I'm doing my arrangement, I'm sitting down and I'm producing with all the sounds I did earlier in my productive session. And it just makes it so much easier to really get the ideas that you want and create music faster. Like I think that's what everybody really wants, is to be able to create music a lot faster.
Yeah, definitely. And you really can't do that if you don't have the proper mindset and you don't have goals to hit. And like you were saying, that part when you were lazy and stuff, it's just because there's no goal to work to, so you just did whatever you want. And when you do whatever you want, you get a bunch of stuff, but just a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and until you really like figure out what you want out of all that stuff and if it's usable, and like you try to manipulate it in directions that like make sense to what you're doing in your production, then you're gonna really like start to develop the library that you want. You just gotta like really recycle some of your sounds and like mess around and delete things. Like if don't be afraid to delete things. I think so many people want to hold on to things forever, and it's like you can really move forward with all the knowledge that you have and create things that are new and more exciting to you, or like revamp some of the things that you already had that were already exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always pulling sounds from old projects and Ableton chains that I save for future use. And whether I use them as is or I flip them completely, it doesn't matter. But my tools are there that I'm creating, and it's my own custom stuff. So in the long run, it'll just get quicker and quicker as you get more detailed and have more options that you've personally made.
Yeah, and really once you're at that state, then your producer's mindset gets even more advanced, where instead of focusing on how you create things, now you're focused more on like how do I affect things? How do I arrange this? How do I do other elements in the productive state? And that really like increased the overall final product. Like you really start to see a lot of progression once you get beyond that beginning point of like tackling your small weaknesses and stuff and making everything your strengths.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Once you have to not worry as much as creating, I still do. Every song there's always a couple elements you still create, but for the most part, you just grab in your tools that you've created in the past, edit them, slap them together, and then at that
Yeah.
point, you'll know what you need to create, and you just keep on moving forward, resample, save new projects, keep resampling, edits, go to the mix down stage, bounce it out, test it, go to the master stage, bounce it out, test it, and just really separating the processes so you could really put your whole brain to each step of the way. That's how you're going to get good results. People can multitask, but you only have 100% power, so think about it. You're doing two things, you're down to 50-50, and as far as I know, that's an F in school.
Yep. Yeah, you want your all in like everything, and we definitely need to spend more time like when we're bored or you're not feeling in the creative mindset, like you're not able to produce things. That usually means that you're either lacking like some sort of understanding and knowledge to complete some of these things that are holding you back from accomplishing spots in your track, or developing like from the ground up and maybe introducing new elements entirely. Like I noticed a lot that the more that I sit down and I spend time to separate my sessions and like go in for a full sound design day and like, make a plan to do that, that like things get even more amazing every time I jump back into the creative session and I have those things. Just when you feel bored, just make sure you're like being productive with your time, even if it feels like it's not as much as a production feels like.
Yeah, everything adds up. There's no one answer to being a music producer. Obviously, you got to make the music. You have to learn the new stuff. You have to experiment stuff you don't know. You have to, there's unlimited possibilities, so you have to tinker with that and take back what sounds decent and apply it to future works. And the most important thing that really helped my mindset was just because you learn something doesn't mean you have to use it in every song. You just got to really learn it and just have it there for when you know you need that effect from that tool or that sound or this or that. And
Yeah.
less is more, really. It's just at the beginning, we would always go so hard. We would have so much progression and changes and stuff, and we wouldn't really, it was just a constant sound wall. And now we're really starting to structure full songs.
I got something funny for you. Um, so uh, less is more. I think that applies really well in terms of arrangement, like with your composition and like keeping melodies simple and like repetition and patterns and stuff. But when it comes to processing your sounds, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes more is more, sometimes less is more. So the option is both ways, kind of.
Yeah, when it comes to processing and sound design stuff, it's whatever you need. Sometimes you don't need much. Sometimes you get something
You need
crazy
to,
by doing a lot. Yeah.
yeah. It just
So
depends on what you're really going for.
yeah, it's all judgment on you. There's no right answer. Experiment. Throw a bunch of plugins on. Rearrange them because
Yeah.
when you slide them around in the routing, that changes a lot too. So you just experiment, experiment, experiment. A, B. Save project. So when you make a big change, resave it as a new project. Like the current uh, collab we're on, we're already on the, pro- I think project number 4 at this point. So you just keep saving
Yeah.
them each point of the way. So you could always go back. That's why we like Ableton. You literally go into the current project folder and you see that version, and then just pull out the MIDI file if you need it. Pull out the patch, whatever. It's really good to keep moving forward. And that way,
Yeah.
visually, you see less.
Do you know if the backup thing was in Ableton 9, the
I,
folder?
I don't think the backup was because that's why
Dang.
everyone was making these multiple projects.
Okay, because the backups is the new feature, and that's even nicer. Like if you're like starting a project and you forgot to save something, you can go into the backup folder inside the project in Ableton 10, and you can actually pull up like a previous state of the project. Sometimes you get lucky and you might be able to find like the actual synth chain that you had before you froze and flattened something like I did today.
Yeah, that and right clicking channels to color them all. He just taught me that. I did not know that I was always coloring channels one by one or highlighting
Yeah.
them all and then the clips. But yeah, just simple things to speed up the process and keep you moving forward. It all adds up. No right answer. Anthony says, yeah, I really try to keep things simple, but at times it's uncontrollable. We all fight that urge. It's you gotta tame the beast and keep pushing forward and not going side to side.
Yeah, usually in those moments, what I would do is take a look at the massive sound that I got going on in a production, and I would kind of take a step back and maybe, especially with Ableton, and if you're in another DAW, if you can like kind of give yourself some free space in the track. Sometimes I like to just insert time and make some free space and just kind of spread the sounds out a little bit and see if maybe I'm writing too fast of flows and it's too complex, or maybe I'm writing too slow of flows and it needs to be more complex. Like maybe I need to remove sounds and just be more simple with like the number of sounds. Um, there was this thing that we watched, I think, a long time ago that told us that like the human mind can only perceive like 7 sounds or something at a time, really.
Think so. I'll look that up right now for us.
Can't remember what it was specifically, but it was just basically like if you have so much going on in one section of a song that like you can just get like confused from the amount of things playing. And sometimes if you just spread that out over a longer period of time, like sometimes I'll take a 4 bar that has a lot of sound in it and turn it into like an 8 bar, turn that into a 16 bar or something. Like just spread out the time and see how, if like maybe I waited for that new sound to come in a couple bars later, maybe it would sound like a better flow with just more simplistic flows, I guess. Wish I could show an example. Like when you divide things, like you just like cut it in half and then duplicate it out, so then you have an extra section of the same thing. Sometimes I just like to do that to see if maybe taking that groove that I like of one little section makes sense to play it across like a longer section, and then maybe make a little bit of variation and then go to the new one that was maybe a little too confusing for the first part.
Yeah.
Sometimes that actually makes it like expand the flows for you. Like sometimes you are able to take the sound that you thought wasn't going to work with the project and actually implement it in a better way just by expanding the track time.
Yep. Definitely. Like, especially when I'm starting a song, I usually make a really complex drop, and then I usually just move that to the last drop and kind of simplify it backwards. And that kind of
Yeah,
plays into goal setting too. You need the big goal, and then you got to break it down backwards to the small steps.
yeah.
And that's the
Make,
proper
make
mindset,
all
getting focus.
file organization.
Yep. Big, big, big time saver, helper. Trying to look this up. I knew someone posted on Twitter. I literally just read it the other day. Has to be on here somewhere.
The sounds thing, how many people can perceive, or how many sounds can people perceive?
Yep.
Yeah, I read something on that and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then I started making like way simpler flows and stuff, and it was just like, well, that makes my flows sound fatter.
Yeah, definitely.
It's crazy because sometimes you just want to get in over your head and like, and in reality, you just need to take a step back and look at like what you got there, maybe spread it out and do something different with it, and then it might change your mindset towards the whole track. It could become your favorite track like in 10 minutes. I've done that recently. I had drums on a track and I hated the drums so badly. I was just like, this track feels so weird and I don't know what it is. And then I pinpointed that I didn't like the drums. I turned off the drums and then played like a different drum rack with it. And it was just the world of a difference. My track literally went from like garbage in my mindset to amazing in like about 5 minutes after writing drums.
Wow.
And it was just like crazy bass flows too. Like it didn't even sound like anything when you played the song back, but I was just like, whatever, throw on the metronome, tap it out, and see if I can make a better flow. And it came out really good in comparison to where it was.
Yeah. And on this page, I'm reading on the tips on somewhere on this page. I'm still scrolling. But there's a good one I passed by. It was outpace left brain logic with faster gut decisions. So, like I said earlier, trust yourself. You like good music, so you're gonna know how to make good music. Just trust your decisions, keep moving forward, and you could always change it later.
Yeah, if it sounds weird in comparison to everything else that you've done after you get the idea, then you already have the idea and now you can change it. If you're focused on that in the beginning of like too much focus on one little sound, then you might not even get to that point where you have a layout and you can actually start looking at those things.
Yep.
It's got to think about trying to get to a place where you can stand on your feet in the track and look Like, okay, where am I going in this track? And this is a direction, and that's a direction. Okay, I like this direction. You gotta be able to obtain that first, and then really start to be a little bit more picky once you get your like initial concept started. I think that's another really good point to go over is like the different states of a track, like the creative state where you're just like kind of messing around, trying to put together ideas, and then there's like the state where it actually starts to become the idea that you want to work with.
Yeah.
What would you say would be some? You're really good at like laying tracks out like that. What would you say is a good like
Workflow.
good advice or good yeah good workflow, good advice for producers that kind of get lost when they get like their good idea?
So lately, since I've been doing like a lot of melodic stuff, and I mean you'll see why when I explain my workflow. I go into Audacity or whatever it's called, and I get my chords, whether it's 4 bar, 8 bar, whatever. I usually just get four nice sounding chords, so that way I know what notes I'm using, I know what scale I'm into, or I'll use my push and lock it into a scale and just mess around and see where the notes that sound good together. Since I don't, you know, music theory I know enough, but not all of it, so I can get around on the keyboard, which is the most important. And I feel like if I learn too much, my music won't be as weird because I'll be more proper. So I kind of stopped pushing my learnings on that. But so I get the chords, I put drums on top, and then from there I'll put a sub or bass on one of the notes in the chords. Then at this part I'm up to like 16 bars. I got my chords, got the drop. I'll just keep layering and layering and layering. And all the bass sounds are from one of the notes on the chords. So every sound that I make are all playing all the same notes, and then I just kind of you start hearing flows in your head, and you start deleting MIDI, turning on the channels, and resample, layer, keep going forward. But I found what we were looking for, and it was less, way less. So it's called The Important Rule in Music. You could go to mpquicktips.com if you want to read more. There's a bunch of stuff on there, or follow him. I think it's the same thing on Twitter. But so he's talking to this Grammy award-winning producer, Jack Joseph Puig. I don't know how to say that. Sorry, dude. Um, he says his biggest tip he could give to a music producer is the human ear can only hear and keep track of three things at once. So,
Really, even less.
so that means you got your drums, you got your main sound, and they're probably focusing on feeling the bass. Like those are your three main elements. So if you add vocals, you got to turn that lead down or duck it behind the vocals and make sure the vocals are more easy to focus on than the lead. So just as you're going through your song structure and layering sounds, if you layer like one sound and they sound as one, obviously that counts as one because they all blend together. But if you're layering a lead and like violins and something else, a guitar, you got to pan them out to help hear them easier because they'll be in different ears. But if you keep going more and more than that, start adding bass sounds, and then you add vocals, and then you add all your drums and cymbals and stuff, and then you start maybe adding I don't know, a chant or something offbeat like everyone does with the what samples. It's just gonna get too busy, and those are the songs that are cool for a second, and then they kind of die out. They really don't stick, and they're not memorable because the brain can't comprehend all that. It sounds cool listening to it at the time because you're like, what is going on? But your brain still thinks that what is going on when the song's over, and you really don't remember the song. It's always the
No.
simple, catchy ones that last forever.
Yeah, you got to make something that really captivates your audience in your production. Like, I found out that like most of my melodies recently are the most simple things you could ever imagine. Like, and like I'll play some complex melodies sometimes, but it's just the simplicity gives your listener something to grasp onto in your music, and then introduce a little bit more complex elements around that simplicity, but do it in a good like arrangement.
Yeah, definitely.
And We'll keep going.
I was just saying, yeah, definitely. That's why there's progression in the music. If you start it off complex, people aren't gonna like it. But if you start off a simple idea and add that complexity and changes that make sense to the original idea, the listener's gonna be able to adapt and carry on as the song gets more complex. That's why they do it that way, and it doesn't go complex to simple. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's just too much.
I mean, it may go so build up to the drop, complex, go down, then there'll be a middle, like simple section, some chill drop, and then it builds back up to the complex drop and goes out. Anthony says, one of my hindrances in music production is structuring my arrangement. I get stuck on a 4 or 8 bar, and then my mind gets tired. Yes, your mind will get tired when you hear a loop over and over again. It lacks hearing progression. So, and I also learned added just a simple reverse cymbal or effect at the end of the 8 bar or drum fill or something right away while you're working on the loop, because that just helps refresh the brain as it loops because it has that drum fill that's like, okay, we're going to another section. But if you just have the same loop going over and over again with no like change at the end, yeah, you will get tired out and you usually close the project when you're still at 8 bars. That's why when I build,
Okay.
I do an intro, which is not normally my intro. It's kind of like the hook, verse, whatever, little mini drop in the beginning of the song. That's 8 bars, and then I make another 8 bars right away to a drop like section, and then from there I'll play the 8 bars, make it, and then I'm like, oh, it sounds weird. On the second time it repeats, I want to do this, like change these drums. So now I'm at 16 bars, and then I'll do the same with the drop. Now I'm at 32 bars, and then obviously you need a build up in between. So then you separate them. Now you're at like 48 bars, and you just keep adding and adding. And then you're like, okay, well, I can't start on the verse. You need a little intro section fading in the sounds to get into this. So you do that. There's another 8, 16 bars, depends on how big your intro is. And you don't want to end the song right after the drop. So then you add a little, either like a drum loop with some minimal layers, or you just reverb everything and bleed it out, or you put a crazy sample, or I don't know. That's up to you. But you know good music, you know how it's laid out. So just keep working and working. And if you're working on the drop and you don't know how to change it and what to work on, go back to the intro, work on that, and then just keep bouncing back and forth so you're always fresh. You don't have to write left to right, even though it helps doing it quickly just to lay out a structure. But after that point, you could bounce around and make edits anywhere. He says, but I have learned from your workflow since you started these live streams. See, exactly, because that's the point of the live streams. We wanted to see it's easier for you to watch us just do what we do and take away the answers you need than us brainstorming specific videos, which we still will in the future. We're getting around to the content in the future, but for right now in our situation, it's easier and time saving for us just to turn the live stream on and get to work what we're doing already, and you learn what you need to learn.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for a lot of people that I know to check these things out and see like the different techniques that I learned recently or random stuff that we've been applying in our production. Just gotta like take what you can from these live streams, and we definitely are trying to put that content together for you guys, which will just be like a nice thing on top of everything.
Yep. So back to the article that I was reading. I was scrolling down and read some more good stuff. They said work in trios. So the standard trio in a song is drums, chords, and lead, and they just consider the bass as a voicing of the chords since it's going to be a note of the chords. So just think simplistic those layers. And pretty much all my songs, I have chords. I have a lead or arp or something moving on top of the chords or vocals, and I have the drums and then the bass. I don't think I've ever made a song that doesn't have all those pieces. I mean, sometimes I used to make songs without chords in the past, but not anymore.
I specifically make songs without chords. But technically, I guess if you're thinking about it, if you're making like a lot of like abstract bass music and stuff, you can think of like some sounds harmonizing like your bass and like your bass synth and your sub. That's technically a chord because if you think about the sounds in Ableton, they're technically overlapping notation, which is just what chords are is overlapping notation.
Yeah, exactly. That brings to a good point. A lot of my sounds when I do strings and stuff, I'll layer violins and violas and cellos, but I'll put them on each note of the chord, so all together they make a chord, and that way you get cool progressions when you add them in because it's harmonizing instead of all playing the root note of chords.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so on this article, he said, think of trios, duos, and solos. So that was the trio example. The In verses or bridge, you usually get working duos. So you get the vocal with the bass, or vocal and chords, and obviously drums. But sometimes they don't even put drums in the verses and bridge. They just let the vocals, ride it out. That way, when it comes back to the chorus and stuff, it's more impactful. And then solo elements like drum fills and hook sounds that are standalone, and but you could go crazier on them and make them do crazy sound effects and stuff because you're working with one element, so the ear could keep track of all that craziness. So it's just really planning your layers, layer away, but make sure the layer is not taken away from the song. Because if it's always crazy, it's not, each section's not gonna flow properly. You gotta build the energy. You gotta take it away. There's a reason why every song has that, whether it goes up and down or it goes up throughout the song, or it always goes up and down. There's no just flat one, and if it is, those are usually the ones you download when you put 10 minutes sleeping music or something. There's a lot of those on YouTube. I listen to them all the time. They put me to sleep very well, and you don't want that with your music. I mean, unless that's the market you're going for.
Yeah, I'm about the ambient music. I'm gonna make some 12-hour drones.
12-hour drones. Hey, they're good for
I,
meditations, but that's why you go
I
into that
got
trance.
yeah, I got that weird program that makes all the drones, so you can definitely make them. Trance music.
Yeah. Anthony, do you have any last questions? I have a few things I want to talk about, but then we're going to be wrapping this up. So if you want any more questions answered, fire away. But what I was going to say is, so last I was talking about layering chords before all the keeping track and stuff. So I always layer in every song of mine. And to make it sound good and not muddy, I spread them across the notes on the chords. And that creates room because they're spread across the frequency spectrum and not all stacked. Then that leads you into EQing. As you layer sounds, you need to figure out which sound is going to do what frequency more. So if you layer chords in an ARP, maybe you'll cut some of the highs in the chords so they tuck under, and then you cut some of the lows in the ARP so the ARP sits on top. And then from there, if you do the EQing and you still need volume, then you'll turn the ARP up or turn the chords down. So don't always just go to volume first. Try to EQ first because that could solve a lot of your issues.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know that for the longest time, and then I started doing it, and I was like, wow. So I've been literally just trying to turn it up or turn it down, and you could have just done this the whole time.
Yep.
So many times I've done that, like, and you'll start to notice the quality of the sound, like because you're shaping out those frequencies to work together. The sound of the entire track's just going to start to get like much cleaner.
Yep. Definitely. And that leads us in full circle. That's the importance of a proper mindset and setting goals. You need direction. No one could ever do what they want when they want. Listen to a bunch of podcasts that interview all successful people. Every single one of them has a schedule. there's not one successful person that says I just wake up and do whatever I want. It just doesn't happen. They have
Yeah.
plans. They schedule meetings. They schedule work time. They schedule play time. Even their playtime, they know what they're gonna do. Maybe some days they'll just sit around, but their playtime, they're gonna go to this cruise or this island, and they're gonna do this. They use all their minutes wisely, and that's something everyone needs to work on, and that's how you get to the next step. Got to be laser focused. Don't spread yourself thin. Like I said, you can multitask, but you only have 100% power. As soon as you add one other item, you're down to 50-50, or 99.9 and 0.01. So why are you even multitasking at that point? Don't do it. Stay focused. Get stuff done.
Yep. And try to make your time valuable to yourself. Like, always make note of when you're not being productive and try to switch over to something that you know that you're more productive in.
Yep. And as for music producer, you have a bunch of options. You have branding, you have working on your social medias, you have organizing your samples, you have creating music, you have sound design, you have learning. There's so many topics to cover.
Yeah.
You should never be bored or feel like you already did everything. There's no finish line in this, unfortunately. So if you think there is, you won't find it. And if you think you found it, that's when you fall behind.
Yep.
Anthony says, this week I'm
Every
working
day.
on adjusting my mindset on a number of things. No more questions. I really learn and get motivated from watching your streams and videos. Keep up the great work, and thank you. Thank you, Anthony. It means a lot. That's why we're here. We're actually working on a new website, so we'll have some more new blog posts and just a lot more of a one hub thing. Then we'll start be building courses, sample packs, and we'll even have a membership site, access all the libraries and all the resources at a monthly fee, just like school without school. We're going to teach you how to do it without the big bucks and debt. That's our goal, empowering music producers worldwide.
Seriously. Everybody needs to be able to make good music because I want to hear more good music. I want to turn on the radio and be stoked that our students have made it there. And I'm just like, wow, this is good music.
Exactly. Like, there's no one ever said there's too much music in the world. No, this is impossible. But there's not enough good music. So, really put your effort into your craft. Have the proper mindset going into it. Don't just open up Ableton and get to work. Kind of think, where are you where are you going today? What's the purpose of going into the Ableton? What are you creating? Are you finishing an old song? Are you remixing a new song? You starting fresh? And then as you're working, just whatever's in front of you, just do it. Don't try to make something in your head when you have to change everything. Just build off of what's in front of you, and that eases the brain to just keep working forward because you always find the missing puzzle piece that way rather than guessing in your head the puzzle pieces that you need to connect to. Yeah, it's kind of backwards that way. You want to work with what's already concrete in front of you and build off of it.
Yep. And just keep working at like all the processes until you figure out what you're really looking for. There was times where I had no idea what I was doing and no idea how to accomplish what I was looking for. But I started to play around with a lot of things, and as I heard the different effects of how these different time-based effects were manipulating things or any of the examples, like took note of that in my head, and I started to think when I was getting into the beginning of a session, okay, I want to make this type of sound and I need these type of effects. Just more calculated thought than prior. Like when I was first starting out, I had no idea. And you really just got to go in there and see what everything does. If you're not familiar with it, it means you definitely need to be looking into it.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes. You just gotta do it. At the end of the day, there's nothing you could do besides just do it. No one's gonna
Well,
do it for you ever. So you might as well put the power in your own hands and not in someone else's. Do the work. It's not easy, but if it was easy, there would be a lot more competition. I think it's bad now. Imagine if it was easy, how much competition there would be. It would be stupid.
too much.
It'd be stupid. Nothing easy is really rewarding. You gotta fight for it, and then it feels good when you get it. And at that point, once you reach that, there's always the next step. Never a finish line. Just a
Yeah.
bunch of feeling good moments to the top of the endless climb.
Yeah.
That's what,
We were just talking about Lucas earlier.
yeah, definitely. Who's come on?
He like he made a peak in his career as an artist, and he did really good in the beginning, and now he's just kind of like he's still there, but he's not really like active in the scene. So he's kind of taking a little bit of time to sit there and work on a lot of stuff, and he's probably readdressing his mindset now and trying to focus in on some new goals and really make things. So even when you've made it like into your area that you want to be in the music field or in life, you just got to push yourself to try to obtain new goals.
Yep.
Oh, I'm getting a call from my girlfriend. I'm gonna have to go real quick.
Yeah, I'll wrap up the stream. I think you said your everything you needed to say.
Perfect.
Yeah,
All
Anthony.
right, everybody.
Peace out,
Take care.
Solarious. Talk to you
Take care.
soon. As for Anthony, I
Yeah, man.
appreciate the spoil as always.
I'm
I
sorry
hope
I
you got a
lagged. There
bunch
was
out of this.
on a side stream.
I hope you got a bunch out of this. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn those bell notifications, little button, click that. Give us a thumbs up on this video so other people stumble upon this and we can continue on our mission to empower music producers worldwide. Later, Anthony. Thanks for tuning in. And everyone at a later date watching this, thanks for watching. Peace.